going on, guys? I'm here to talk about FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and the pattern that I've recognized over the past year and a half, leading up to what we're seeing now today. Keep in mind, this has always been a psychological warfare type of game between us and them. The only way we lose is if we sell too early. And the shorts know this, so they're going to do everything they can to get us to sell early, and that's where all the FUD comes in, right? Now, recently, I have noticed trends within the FUD. You can pick them out. It's almost like watching the chart, right? There's patterns and there's things you can recognize to see that, where the FUD is coming from and the narrative that's trying to push, because all the FUD that's out there, all of the shills, all of the bullshit is meant, it's not necessarily meant to completely change your mind on the play, although for the shorts that would be fantastic, but chances are probably good that's not going to happen to you. What their goal is with it is to plant enough seeds of doubt to make you question your conviction once this kicks off, once this ramps up. When you start seeing prices at a certain amount or your P&L at a certain amount, it's their hope that all of the seeds of doubt that you have been exposed to through social media are going to take effect and that you're going to sell early. And they don't have, and then they'll survive this. They'll be able to continue doing what they're doing. They'll be able to get off scot-free, right? So, what am I talking about? Recently, as you know, there's been the talk of the town is the whole 100K price target thing. I touched on that pretty heavily actually in my last video, so go check that out if you haven't already. And it seems that anytime there is a narrative out there that goes against the original play, that goes against, holding to astronomical heights, the shills and the FUD, they double down on that and they piggyback off of that extremely heavily, right? And it's pretty easy to pick out a lot of the FUD that are bot farms. We know they exist. We've seen the pictures. We know what they're capable of. It's all those phones hooked up on a board, combing through social media, just posting the same bullshit over and over again under different usernames. And with the 100K topic floating around, you notice with the FUD, and you can look at the patterns from, throughout the last year, basically year and a half, they all use very similar vocabulary because it's all programmed, right? They're not individual people sitting there with their own thoughts typing it out. It's the same general blanket statement being posted over and over and over again. For instance, about a year ago, before we had our run up to all-time highs last June, a lot of the bots, a lot of the FUD, kept saying something along the lines of, I would be more than happy with $50 per share, or $50 per share is life-changing for me. And we would see that posted over and over and over again on the Weeble chat, Reddit, YouTube comments, Twitter, you name it. It was everywhere. And I'm seeing that pattern start to emerge again with this 100K price target that now everyone is discussing. Specifically, a lot of your very prominent YouTube channels. And you can go in the comment sections and look at this. a lot of people, well, a lot of the FUD that I see, it opens with the phrase, "Thank you for being realistic." All right, comments talking to people saying how 100K is impossible and it's not going to happen and all this other stuff. They all say something along the lines of, thank you for being realistic. It's about time people are realistic. I'm gonna put out another video about realism, about being realistic. I'll make another one about that soon. I think that deserves its own discussion, its own talking point. But let's stay focused on the FUD here. So they open up saying something like "Thank you for being realistic," and that phrase is hammered over and over and over again. You know, we had our floor, if you will. We'll just say, for argument's sake, the general consensus is the floor is 100K. I know a lot of people are saying we're way past that. We're just going to use the 100K as a baseline example here because that's the scenario that most people are talking about right now, right? People are saying, the FUD is saying, thank you for being realistic in response to the 100K floor. So what is that doing to you psychologically? What is the point of them consistently hammering you with the thought of people dismaying the 100K and then saying it's realistic? You're constantly being exposed to the thought, whether you like it or whether you know it or not. You're consistently being exposed to the thought that 100K is simply not a realistic goal, and therefore you need to go lower, right? And that's where part two of the FUD comes in. Thanks to one of the videos that Trey pointed out, or that Trey made. Now, let me just clear this up. I disagree with Trey's video. We all know the one I'm talking about. I disagree with that. I touched on that in my last video as well. I will say there's some misinformation going around saying that he said that we should sell at $270 to $300. I'm going to be very fair here and just put this out saying that that's not what he said. All right, he's using TA and he used a Fibonacci tracement to get to those numbers based off of the last run-up. Now, I still disagree with his opinion on the 100K. I still believe that 1K and 2K is just the beginning. He said something about like if the stars align, we might see that. No, we're going past that, if you ask me. But the people out there saying how Trey said to sell at 300, that's not true. But that doesn't stop the FUD from pushing that number. Why? Because it's a solid number that they can piggyback off of. That's another reason why people are upset and discouraged with the video that Trey put out, because these bot farms, these shills, and these analysts who are coordinating all of the shill and FUD out there, they're finding these numbers to latch onto, especially when it comes to videos like Trey's, because they know it's people that we watch, people that we listen to. And so the second part of the FUD, after the whole being realistic, is saying that they're either going to sell at 300 or how they'd be more than happy with 300. Basically, that 270 to 300 is something else that you see amongst the new wave of FUD that has come out. And a lot of the FUD I've seen even discourages the whole 1 to 2K price target. And I don't believe that's on accident, because again, you have these prominent figures in the community saying how we would be lucky to see such heights. Therefore, the FUD automatically comes in and dismisses that as not a possibility, and how we have to settle at a couple $100. And I mentioned this in the previous video. A couple $100 is not the MOAS. A regular short squeeze? Yeah, absolutely. If this was a normal ass play in the market, and this was just a regular short squeeze, sure. Yeah. It's like a baby squeeze, really. But given everything that's going on, given everything that we know, given how deep they have dug these holes, they didn't lie in front of Congress for $300. All right, they didn't burn down a warehouse full of documents over $300. You got to think about it. You got to pay attention to what's going on. You have to understand that the lengths that these people are going to, if it was a $300 play, they would have covered already. They just would have. They would have cut their losses and they would have started over. The reason they haven't is because this is worth way more than $300. This is worth way more than $1,000 or $2,000. And there's no other way to paint that. It just is. You don't burn down warehouses. You don't commit all of these crimes over a couple $100 per share. Alright? As always, I'm not a financial advisor, not financial advice, entertainment purposes only, all that sort of shit, right? Be aware of the FUD out there, and if you haven't already, start to recognize the pattern that you see out there. Start to recognize the numbers that they start to anchor their statements to in order to get that psychological bug in your mind. All right? Because it's not on accident. It's absolutely on purpose. You know, these shorts, these companies, these bad actors, I guarantee you they have analysts there. They have analysts who identify certain pieces of FUD out there that they push, and then they see amongst, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, when they push it, how many users, how many quote unquote apes are parroting what they say. And they're saying, okay, cool, because you have your typical FUD saying that, like, the squeeze was 72, right? It's over, it's done. No one believes that, right? Nobody actually believes that this play is done. They still push that out there, of course, but no one's really parroting that. But then they have things saying like, oh, we need to be realistic, and I'm going to sell at 300. And then you get some people who either are new to the play or haven't been keeping up with it and don't really know what's going on, or people who have lost their conviction over the year and a half start to parrot it too. And they see that they're analysts, right? They see, okay, this has an X percentage of people pretty much agreeing with our false statements, our FUD. So then they double down on that and they push it out more. They try to get more and more people to repeat the FUD that they're pushing. Now, do I know this as a fact? Do I know for certain that there's analysts there? Well, no, of course not, because I don't work at one of these places, right? I'm not in these buildings. But you gotta think, why wouldn't they? This is the top 1%. These are the richest people in the world, right? It only makes sense that they would have this, especially when you look at the patterns, right? When you look at the patterns, when you analyze the FUD out there, it only makes sense. You don't think they're willing to burn down warehouses. They're lying in front of Congress. You don't think they have social media analysts out there doing the math, figuring out what FUD is being pushed the hardest, and then doubling down on it? Of course they are. Of course they are. It only makes sense. Ignore the FUD. Stick to the original DD. Stick to the plan. I'll see y'all on the moon.